Will he deliver the final blow to Iran's nuclear program? Will he rid the world of this clear and present danger and this existential threat? Will he end Iran's threat of nuclear terror once and for all and make the world a safer place for generations to come? This is not an easy decision for anybody. And let me be clear. It is not without its own risks. But ask yourself these questions. Would the world be better off without the world's #1 state sponsor of terror?
I believe a strike on Iran is imminent, and these are going to be with B-2 bombers carrying 30,000-pound bombs. In this video, I'm going to explain why I believe a strike is imminent. I'm also going to provide additional evidence tying together exactly why I believe this is happening, and there is somebody priming us for exactly why this is coming. And we are going to go through what the War Powers Act is. Are we actually being dragged into a war? And what can Congress really do about this? Let's get started. First, I have never seen Sean Hannity give this impassioned of a speech in terms of why Iran must be stopped from developing nuclear weapons, stopping Israel from using strategic nuclear weapons.
Israel could use a tactical nuclear weapon to wipe out the site.
Specifically against the Fordow enrichment facility in Iran.
In order to prevent the mullahs from getting a nuclear weapon, this facility must be destroyed. Tonight, this is south of Tehran. This is believed to be the most significant and secretive nuclear facility inside of Iran.
And bring on Senator Ted Cruz at the same time to talk about how important it is for the United States to decisively strike, and that this strike is not a forever war. It's an in, it's an out. We're not deploying troops. We have air superiority. We need to take advantage of the situation now and get it done. That's a big summary, and I'll put some clips in here so you can really see the passion in it. But this is the facility. This is the Fordow facility that I believe is going to be the target of the United States B-2 bomber attack. Now, here's what we know. We currently believe that there are multiple B-52 bombers that have already been in place as of April and May and were confirmed to still be in place today. Potentially as many as 7 to 8 B-2 bombers positioned in Diego Garcia. Diego Garcia is an island that is just about a 6-hour one-way flight to Iran. And we've already positioned multiple refueling planes in the region, especially around Qatar, which is on the way to Iran, in the event these B-2 bombers need a mid-air refuel, or any kind of defensive jets around the B-2 bombers defending their entrance into the Iranian airspace need a refueling themselves, so that way they can escort bombers in and out in the safest way possible. These B-2 bombers are critical aircraft because they are the only aircraft known to be able to carry the GBU-57. Okay. What is the GBU-57? The GBU-57 is a guided bomb unit, number 57. They're massive ordnance penetrator bombs that weigh about 30,000 pounds. They're precision-guided bunker buster bombs that were developed specifically for the United States Air Force. And high-frequency radio chatter right now suggests that 2 of these United States Air Force B-2 bombers are on the way. Now, these 30,000-pound bombs are massive. And the reason they need to be massive is because that Fordow nuclear facility I showed you a graphic of, which you can also see here on Google Maps, likely contains or houses enrichment facilities as much as 80 to 90, as many as 80 to 90 meters below the ridges of these mountains here. 30,000-pound bombs, bunker-busting bombs, could technically, since they're specified for this, penetrate about 60 meters, which means we'd likely need multiple of these bombs in succession to actually get into the Fordow enrichment facility.
Bombs that could destroy Fordow, and I think it is very much in America's interest to see that nuclear research lab destroyed. Look, Iran is not researching nuclear technology because the Ayatollah is worried about climate change. He's researching nuclear technology for one reason: to create nuclear warheads to be able to murder as many Israelis as he can and as many Americans as he can.
Currently, The 30,000-pound bomb, per the Wall Street Journal, is being called the U.S. bomb that could cripple Iran's nuclear ambitions. Here's the size of what the bomb looks like, and it is designed to plummet through 200 feet of mountain rock before exploding, which is pretty dang remarkable. That's about 60 meters. Military analysts said the large bunker buster has the best chance of getting through targets like Fordow's uranium enrichment facility, which Iran buried under a mountain. This is basically exactly what it's designed for, is to Top Gun Iran, which is basically the subject of Top Gun anyway. But anywho, the U.S. worked on this conventional alternative, spending $400 million to design this massive ordnance penetrator. Note this is different from a MOAB, or mother of all bombs, which is typically designed for more surface-based attacks. Now, there's this belief that Ayatollah Khamenei would actually back down. But the problem with that theory is there's no indication he actually cares, given that if you just look at a post that he sent out within the last hour here, quote, "We must give a strong response to the Zionist regime. We will show the Zionists no mercy." At the same time, Donald Trump, we were told, was going to give a speech today, or at least a follow-up to his National Security Council presentation in the Situation Room. The speech and follow-up never came. In fact, the speech was canceled, and we never got a follow-up. Instead, we got Truth Social posts about flagpoles. And I'll just go ahead and put up on screen the sentiment on Truth Social right now, and you can see that here. I won't read it out loud for, well, obvious reasons. So sentiment is pretty clear, and a lot of people were wondering, why isn't Donald Trump giving us a heads up about what's going on? Well, probably because they don't want to jeopardize the actual mission, even though it's pretty obvious what's going on right now, or likely going on, absent some form of rapid resolution. That's surprising. It appears the United States is going to strike Iran. Now, we have a War Powers Act. A War Powers Act basically limits a president's deployment into hostilities to 60 days. Potentially up to 90 days if you utilize the 30-day withdrawal exemption. It gives you an opportunity to extend for an extra 30 days, just solely for collecting all your stuff and getting out, not for continuing a mission. This gives the president very strong authority to do whatever he wants within a 60-day window without the authorization of Congress declaring war. Obviously, you can do more once Congress declares war. Thomas Massie, a conservative who voted against the big beautiful bill in the House for fear of the debt expanding, has partnered with senators and representatives like AOC, Bernie Sanders, Khanna, and many others on both sides of the aisle to argue that it is time to limit the president's ability to get involved in Iran, that this is not our war and this is not a time to get into an active conflict. Well, the United States is probably going to get involved in this active conflict, but it's unlikely to be a long-standing war, and this resolution is likely not to be necessary. However, let's even say that Tom Massie and Khanna's co-sponsored bill actually got through. What actually is it? Well, it's a concurrent resolution that cites Section 5C of the War Powers Act, and it basically says we can limit your 60-day deployment that the president gets through Section 5C if we pass a resolution in both chambers of Congress, so the Senate and the House. In other words, Congress could technically stop Donald Trump from deploying into hostilities. The problem is the Supreme Court in 1983, under an unrelated immigration statute, ended up ruling in the INS versus Chadha case that a joint resolution would likely violate constitutional requirements for presidential presentment. In English, the president gotta sign resolutions and bills for them to matter. And even though technically a concurrent resolution doesn't need the president to sign, we don't know how we feel about this. It doesn't seem constitutional for Congress to be able to do this without the president. And given that in this case, this would be a resolution that would request limiting the very president's power, who would otherwise have to sign, it's very unlikely that Donald Trump is going to sign to limit his own power. So once again, we get back to politicians just doing things because they sound good and they sound cool on Twitter. And Thomas Massie gets more likes on Twitter, but he doesn't actually do anything for progress. So, do we actually think we're going to have a standing war here? Hopefully not. my hope is that these strikes happen, which it looks like they will very soon. And then after the strikes happen, the regime gives up. And they give up their nuclear enrichment program. They stop enriching uranium. Get rid of the centrifuges. Stop trying to separate U-235 from U-238. And start listening to the U2 albums instead. Okay, it's basically you take uranium, okay, mostly U-238. You try to extract the weapons and energy grade U-235 by centrifuging basically the gaseous state of uranium, separating the good stuff from the weak stuff, and then you put a bunch of the good stuff together and you can make yourself a bomb, okay? Now, you don't even need to heat this stuff up that much. You need to heat up this stuff. It's like uranium hexafluoride or whatever it's called. You got to heat this up to about the temperature of a hot cup of coffee. So if you have a coffee maker, you could create yourself some uranium hexafluoride and then spin it around. Okay, it's very unlikely you'll be able to enrich uranium yourself. But the point is, it's not actually that hard. You just got to end the program, okay? You got to end these ambitions. Now, separately, we could talk about like, hey, you know, Obama signed the JCPOA to try to get a deal going with Iran to where they could get back to exporting oil. We would reduce sanctions against them if they followed our weapons inspections guidelines. And technically they did for the first couple years. Donald Trump didn't like the deal, tore up the deal, withdrew from the deal. And then Iran's kind of like, all right, well, if the U.S. withdraws from the deal, we'll just go keep enriching uranium. Donald Trump always said we need something more aggressive, but we never got a better plan to replace the one he tore up. So some people say that's why we're here where we are now. Other people say, no, it's Biden. Biden unfreeze their $6 billion, although a lot of that was refrozen after the invasion into by Hamas into Israel, or I should say the attack. Technically, the invasion was the other way around. But you get the idea, okay? There's a lot going on here. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of opinion. But the point is, Congress right now can't stop Donald Trump. And it's likely we're going to take these precision strikes. And frankly, if we don't finish the job, we'll probably do even more strikes. We'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting. Follow for more.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.